The time has finally come. You've decided you're ready to retire. You've done all the planning. You've figured out that you've accumulated enough and you are going to stop earning a paycheck. And now it's time to figure out how in the world you're going to create that paycheck, but utilizing your retirement assets. That can come with a lot of fear and anxiety because there is uncertainty around the future. How much money we're going to need when we're 80 versus how much we need today could be very different. And obviously, dealing with the volatility in the financial markets can also create some fear and angst. So, in this video, we're going to talk about how you can go from saving to spending and ideally reduce or maybe eliminate that stress and anxiety that can come with that transition. There's 7 steps we're going to talk about today to help ease that fear. So, step number 1 is understanding your expenses. This is obviously very essential. Furthermore, what is an essential expense versus a non-essential expense? You want to kind of decipher between the two. So essential would be things like housing, transportation, food, utilities, insurance. Non-essential would be dining out, travel, leisure, entertainment. But what is that number? Once you understand that number, add about 10 to 15% to it. There is no doubt that most people end up spending more than they think that they are spending. And that's usually 10, 15, in some cases 20% more. Second, maintain at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a cash account. So in a reserve account, such as a high yield savings account. So whatever that number was that you figured out in step 1, take 3 to 6 months of it, keep it in a high yield savings account. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is understanding and knowing your income floor. So an income floor is made up of your sources of income that I would consider guaranteed sources. Number 1 would be Social Security. Number 2 would be a pension. And number 3, an annuity if you have an annuity. Yes, I understand Social Security. There's some concerns about benefits being there long term. That's a video for another day. But for the purposes of this example, we're going to assume Social Security is a part of that income floor. Add up that number and determine what the difference is between your income floor, those guaranteed sources, and your expense number. So that's your gap. So an income floor and understanding what that is extremely important. And it's very helpful because it gives you the opportunity to see how much of your essential expenses are going to be covered by your income floor. In some cases, that's 80% or maybe even more of your income floor is going to cover your essential spending. But understanding that kind of ratio is 80% of your essential expenses covered by your income floor, whatever that number is extremely helpful to have an understanding of that. So that's step number 3. Step number 4, funding your retirement buckets. So for this example, retirement buckets is time. So there's 0 to 2 years, there's 2 to 5 years, and then there's 5 years plus. And each of these buckets is filled with your approximate spending. So 0 to 2 years, looking at the next 0 to 2 years, how much do you plan to spend? So take your expense number, add any maybe travel or big expenses that you know you anticipate in the next 0 to 2 years. Put that dollar amount in bucket number 1. That's invested in things like treasury bills or treasury bonds, something that has a decent return without a lot of risk and frankly is as close to risk-free as possible. Bucket number 2 is looking 2 to 5 years out. And you fill that bucket with approximately 3 years of expenses. And this money is invested in perhaps corporate bonds or dividend-paying stocks, something that's going to generate a return ideally higher than the 0 to 2 year or the cash bucket, but you're not taking a ton of financial risk. And then there's the third bucket, which is looking 5 years out. This is going to be filled with the majority of your retirement assets. And it's looking at the next 25 plus years of your retirement plan. And this is invested in things like stocks, for example. So the bucket number 1, very little to no risk. Bucket number 2, low risk. Bucket number 3 is considered your risk bucket. Step number 5, now that you've filled the buckets, is mapping your distribution plan. So you're not necessarily going to take money from that 0 to 2 year bucket. It's more of a psychological thing than anything else. Because when you enter retirement, you can start to draw from your investment portfolio that's invested, maybe it's primarily invested in stocks and bonds, but you maintain that 0 to 2 year bucket and that 2 to 5 year bucket primarily to avoid having to sell in a down market. Okay, so if you are retiring and all of a sudden we enter a bear market, which is maybe there's a 20 to 30% stock market correction, You don't want to necessarily be having to sell your stocks in that type of environment. So that's when you stop taking distributions from your investment portfolio and you utilize that 0 to 2 year bucket or that 2 to 5 year bucket to fund your retirement income. And the idea is that you can weather just about any type of storm with the 0 to 5 year bucket and not have to take distributions if you didn't want to from that 5+ year bucket. But understand that distribution plan. Under what circumstances are you not going to take withdrawals from the investment account? Under what circumstances are you going to turn that off? Is it going to be when the market drops 20%? Is it going to be when your withdrawal rate is above and beyond 4%? Or maybe there's specific guardrails that you're using. But understanding your distribution plan is step number 5. Step number 6 is understand your order of withdrawals. What account, like literally, what account are you going to take $1 from? Is it going to be a trust investment account? Is it going to be your 401k, a Roth IRA? It's determine what account you're going to start taking distributions from starting right away. What account are you going to use to create that paycheck? Typically, a good rule of thumb is utilize taxable assets first, such as a trust investment account, and then move on to your 401k, and then lastly, a Roth IRA if you have one. So understand your order of withdrawals from which account you're going to start taking distributions from starting right away. So that's step number 6. And then step number 7, lastly, is stress test your plan. So back to that 4% rule or the guardrails, it's understanding under what circumstances will you need to take a pay cut, or under what circumstances can you give yourself a raise, and under what circumstances do you need to completely deviate and change your distribution plan. It's looking at the next 30 years and determine whether or not you need to change course. You should be looking at that at least once a year and stress testing it in terms of a market downturn. Under what circumstances, if the market drops 20%, what's the game plan? If inflation is higher than expected, what's the game plan? If your expenses increase dramatically due to health, what's the game plan? So you want to stress test these things on a regular basis to determine whether or not your current trajectory is still viable or if you need to change course. So these 7 steps, yes, it seems like a lot, but looking at your expenses, understanding your income floor, creating that emergency fund, looking at the buckets, these are all things that are going to help alleviate a lot of that stress and anxiety that a lot of people start to feel when they all of a sudden are going from accumulating and saving to actually taking money out of their investment accounts. And coming up with a stress test and stress testing that on a regular basis and understanding under what circumstances you're going to have to change course. Because when that event occurs, whether it's the market downturn that's going to happen or that health event, you're not completely caught off guard. And you've done the planning along the way in anticipation of those events. So if you want to walk through these steps together, please reach out. We can create a financial plan that involves these 7 steps to creating that paycheck, that element of paycheck replacement to help reduce that stress and anxiety that I see time and time again with people that are going from working and accumulating to all of a sudden distributing and taking money from their investment